Alex Eala didn't walk onto that court. She arrived, like a verdict nobody appealed. 44 minutes. That's all it took for a 20-year-old from the Philippines to strip the world number one of everything she thought she owned. Her serve, her dominance, her crowd. 20,000 voices. Gone. Swallowed by shock so thick you could choke on it. Aryna Sabalenka, 3 Grand Slam titles, months of near-perfect tennis, feared by every player breathing on this tour, stood across from someone the algorithms hadn't fully ranked yet, someone the pundits still spelled wrong, someone the bookmakers gave almost zero chance. And yet, when that final ball landed, unreturned, unchallenged, uncontested, it wasn't Sabalenka pumping her fist. It wasn't Sabalenka dropping to her knees. It wasn't Sabalenka's name echoing off those walls. Stay right here, because what happened in those 44 minutes didn't just change a scoreline, it rewrote a power structure that women's tennis had accepted as permanent. There is a particular kind of athlete the world underestimates precisely because of where they come from. Not because they lack talent, not because they lack preparation, but because the world has a habit of seeing geography before it sees greatness. Alexandra Eala grew up in the Philippines, a nation volcanic in passion for sport, yet historically invisible on the global tennis stage. No Filipina had ever won a Grand Slam main draw singles match before her. No Filipina had ever cracked the WTA Top 100. The sport's infrastructure, its academies, its pathways, none of them were built with Manila in mind. And yet, something stubborn lived inside this young woman, something that refused that geography as a ceiling. She left home young, crossed hemispheres, enrolled at the Rafael Nadal Academy in Mallorca, Spain, the same volcanic island where the greatest clay court competitor in history sharpened his weapons. She wasn't handed anything there. She trained alongside European prospects, absorbed every tactical lesson the academy breathed, and rebuilt her game around a left-handed service motion that even then coaches quietly noted as a future weapon against the very best. While her peers accumulated tournament appearances and WTA points on familiar European circuits, Eala climbed slowly through ITF and WTA 125 events, the unglamorous underground of professional tennis, where nobody watches but everybody competes like their career depends on it, because it does. By early 2025, she held a ranking of 140, respectable for a 20-year-old from a country with zero women's tennis infrastructure, laughable by WTA 1000 standards. Then came Miami. She entered as a wild card, an afterthought in the draw, the kind of player opponents check, shrug at, and schedule easy practice sessions against. The press didn't profile her, broadcasters didn't rehearse her name, the crowd didn't yet know what a left-handed Filipina teenager looked like at full throttle. Round 1, she dispatched Katie Volinets, controlled, clean, efficient. Then came Jelena Ostapenko, the 2017 French Open champion, ranked 25th in the world. Ostapenko's game is built on detonation, explosive ground strokes designed to overwhelm before an opponent settles. Eala absorbed that detonation, redirected it, and won 7-6, 7-5. Nobody panicked yet. Upsets at this stage happen. Then she faced Madison Keys, Australian Open champion, top 5 in the world, a player whose forehand generates the kind of heat that melts most opponents before the second set. Eala beat her 6-4, 6-2. Not a fluke, a demolition. And then Iga Swiatek, at that moment the second-ranked player on the planet, owner of 5 Grand Slam titles, the woman who had dominated clay and hard courts for 3 straight seasons. Eala defeated her 6-2, 7-5. On a stage watched by hundreds of thousands globally, a teenager from the Philippines had handed one of the sport's modern giants a clinical, ruthless, almost insulting defeat. The tournament staff printed her name correctly after that match. The entire tennis world suddenly needed to know who exactly was Alex Eala and how far could she go. She reached the semifinals, lost a tight, grinding battle to Jessica Pegula that stretched past midnight, but she left Miami with something no ranking point could fully quantify. She left with credibility, with fear installed inside opponents' heads, with the knowledge, personal and chemical and bone deep, that she belonged at this level. And beneath all the celebration, beneath the social media explosions and the Philippine national pride flooding every comment section, beneath all of it, one matchup remained unfinished. One name had not yet appeared across from hers: Aryna Sabalenka. The moment that question surfaced, the tennis world held its breath. But nobody, genuinely nobody, expected the answer to arrive so fast, so violently, or so completely. And when it did arrive, the sport of tennis shook. Before you understand what happened to Aryna Sabalenka that evening, you must first understand what Aryna Sabalenka was. Not who she is sentimentally, not the inspirational comeback story or the emotional chapters she has publicly shared, but what she represented as a competitive force on a tennis court. Because without that understanding, the 44 minutes that followed will never land with their full, devastating weight. Sabalenka, from Belarus, arrived at the summit of women's tennis through sheer, relentless physical superiority. Her serve is not merely powerful, it is architecturally intimidating. It arrives at velocities that bend reaction time into irrelevance. Opponents don't return it so much as survive it. When functioning at full capacity, her first serve percentage paired with her ground stroke depth creates a mathematical problem most players simply cannot solve. She won her first Australian Open in 2023, then again in 2024, back-to-back. The same year, she added the US Open crown. 3 Grand Slams, a reign built on consistency so brutal it began feeling structural, like a fact of the sport rather than an achievement within it. She carried world #1 status not briefly, not controversially, but as a sustained reality backed by match results across every surface, every tournament tier, every emotional condition. Players who had beaten her previously started losing to her again. Players who had the tactical tools to challenge her started crumbling under the atmospheric pressure of her reputation before the warm-up even finished. Her semifinal at Miami in 2025, dismantling Jasmine Paolini 6-2, 6-2 in 71 minutes, showcased exactly that atmospheric pressure operating at peak efficiency. Paolini, a top 10 player, a Roland Garros finalist, a genuine contender on any given week, looked like a junior facing a professional. That performance rattled opponents watching from the locker room. That performance established the court as Sabalenka's territory. And now, months later, circumstances reshuffled, draws constructed by tennis gods with either extraordinary cruelty or extraordinary vision, Alex Eala's name appeared directly opposite Sabalenka's. The odds didn't just favor Sabalenka, they laughed at the alternative. She had won her previous 11 matches. She had dropped a combined 9 games across her last 3 performances. Her serve had been clocked at velocities that made commentators audibly exhale. The Miami crowd, the same crowd that had embraced Eala's fairy tale 12 months earlier, now packed those seats expecting to witness a continuation of Sabalenka's coronation. 20,000 people, cameras, history watching. Everyone prepared to celebrate the inevitable. Nobody prepared for the truth. Because Alex Eala hadn't come to participate. She had come to dismantle. The first game lasted 4 minutes. In those 4 minutes, Eala returned Sabalenka's opening delivery with a cross-court backhand so sharp, so deliberately placed into the corner, that Sabalenka's follow-through swing connected with nothing. The point was over before the crowd processed it had begun. Eala held her expression. No celebration, no fist pump, just eyes already calculating the next problem. That calculation was the entire story of those 44 minutes. Eala came into this match having studied Sabalenka's patterns with surgical obsession. The left-handed angle of her serve created trajectories Sabalenka's returner brain hadn't fully programmed responses for. Every time Sabalenka expected the ball to break conventionally toward her backhand, Eala's left-handed motion redirected it elsewhere, into the body, out wide, cramping Sabalenka's swing before it gathered momentum. Sabalenka's first serve percentage collapsed by the second game. Not because Eala performed anything miraculous, because Eala pressed the first delivery relentlessly, neutralizing pace, absorbing pace, redirecting pace back with interest. Sabalenka, conditioned to living off her opponent's defensive posture, suddenly found herself defending. This wasn't supposed to happen. She double-faulted twice in the fourth game. The crowd murmured, not panic yet, more confusion, like watching a weather forecast prove catastrophically wrong. Eala broke, then held, then broke again. The first set concluded 6-1 in 22 minutes against the world number 1. The stadium didn't erupt. It didn't boo. It produced something far more unnerving, a suspended collective silence, the acoustic equivalent of an entire arena holding its breath simultaneously. The second set began, and Sabalenka visibly adjusted, changed her serve positioning, attempted shorter rally patterns, tested Eala's forehand with heavier topspin. Each tactical shift arrived too late, too predictable, too committed to reversing rather than redirecting. Eala's forehand, the shot that legendary coach Patrick Mouratoglou once described as having devastating timing for someone her age, found gaps that mathematically shouldn't have existed. Her footwork transformed Sabalenka's offensive patterns into neutral ones. Every time Sabalenka constructed a point toward a put-away opportunity, Eala's positioning had already closed that geometry. Sabalenka argued with her coaching box at 3-1. The gesture itself was a confession, an acknowledgement that the tactical conversation happening on court no longer matched the preparation completed off it. Eala broke again at 4-2, held confidently, served out the second set 6-2. Total time, 44 minutes. A scoreline of 6-1, 6-2 against Aryna Sabalenka, against the undisputed, unquestioned, statistically dominant world number 1. Eala walked to the net, shook hands, and permitted herself one quiet smile. Not triumphant, not theatrical, the smile of someone who had known, privately, for months that this particular outcome lived inside her capability and had just proven it publicly, permanently, irrevocably. 20,000 people sat there, completely silent, trying to make sense of a reality they had not purchased tickets to witness. Silence in a sports stadium is not the absence of sound. It is its own acoustic event. When 20,000 people stop breathing simultaneously, when 20,000 phones lower involuntarily, when 20,000 conversations die mid-sentence, that silence has a texture, a temperature, a particular emotional frequency that players on court feel before they consciously register it. Every person present that evening described a shared sensation, the slow realization that what they dismissed as impossible was happening in front of them, and there was nothing left to say about it. Social media captured what the stadium contained. Within minutes of the final point, clips of Eala's cross-court returns circulated globally. The hashtag attached to her name appeared in millions of posts within an hour. The Philippine internet, already combustible since her 2025 Miami run, entered a state of national celebration so widespread that it temporarily trended above the country's top political stories. In one fan video recorded from the upper tier of the stadium, you can hear the exact moment the crowd processed Eala's second set break at 4-2. There's an intake of sound, not applause, not protest, just thousands of individuals audibly absorbing the same unexpected information simultaneously. Comments underneath that video read like dispatches from a community whose worldview had shifted. I came here for Sabalenka and witnessed history instead. Another, my daughter watches Eala. After tonight, I understand why. Another, sharper, this isn't an upset anymore. This is a statement. Tennis commentators who had confidently framed the contest as a formality for Sabalenka scrambled to reframe their narratives mid-broadcast. One veteran analyst on commentary duty, someone who had watched women's tennis professionally for 2 decades, paused for several seconds after the final scoreline before uttering, quietly, "I genuinely don't know what to compare this to." The silence wasn't just inside that stadium. It stretched globally across broadcast studios, press rows, and coaching boxes everywhere opponents of Eala now sat, watching their upcoming draw schedules with entirely revised calculations. Because the number that echoed loudest wasn't the scoreline, it was the duration. 44 minutes. Players had beaten Sabalenka before. Upsets, by definition, occur. But nobody, in recent memory, at this stage of a tournament against this version of Sabalenka at the height of her powers, had made her look tactically helpless within the time frame of a standard lunch break. That number carried its own particular cruelty. It wasn't close, it wasn't disputed, it left no narrative space for almost or different conditions or off day. 44 minutes was a verdict delivered without hesitation. And verdicts of that kind, delivered that cleanly, demand an explanation nobody wanted to give. What happens after the most powerful player in your sport loses comprehensively to someone half the punditry still considers a rising prospect? The conversation fractures. Sabalenka appeared before the post-match press within 20 minutes of leaving the court. Her expression carried controlled composure, the professional armor worn by champions who understand that every syllable delivered inside that room becomes permanent record. She played extremely well, Sabalenka acknowledged. I didn't play my level. Simple as that. Simple as that. 2 sentences, 6 words. A public door closed firmly on deeper excavation. But the tennis world, which runs on analysis the way engines run on combustion, refused those 6 words as sufficient. Because the question underneath Sabalenka's brevity wasn't whether Eala played well, the scoreline rendered that discussion redundant. The real question, the one being typed furiously across broadcast forums, coaching discussions, and tennis analytics platforms simultaneously, had Eala exposed something structural? Former players on broadcast panels raised the left-handed angle theory with renewed urgency. Statistics confirmed that Sabalenka's return performance against left-handed opponents historically underperformed her already elite average. Eala's serve, still developing in raw pace, nevertheless generated angles off the left side that compressed Sabalenka's comfortable hitting zone with uncomfortable consistency. One former Grand Slam champion, commenting on a major sports network, put it directly. What Eala did wasn't lucky. The game plan was executed with a precision that made Sabalenka's strengths irrelevant. You don't win 6-1, 6-2 in 44 minutes against the world #1 through accident. The controversy deepened through the channels where tennis debates now live permanently. Social media, podcasts, fan communities with long institutional memories. 2 clear camps emerged. The first insisted the result reflected a temporary misalignment of conditions, Sabalenka off form, Eala peaking, circumstances combining into a statistical anomaly. The second camp, louder, growing, increasingly difficult to dismiss, argued something more unsettling for Sabalenka's dominance, that Eala had solved her, not temporarily, systematically. That Eala had identified the specific tactical coordinates where Sabalenka's invincibility stopped operating, and had exploited those coordinates with the calm efficiency of someone who had rehearsed this exact outcome hundreds of times before stepping onto that court. Between both camps sat an uncomfortable reality that neither fully articulated. Nobody had a historical comparison that fit cleanly. This specific combination, youth, geography, left-handedness, tactical precision, and emotional composure, had never previously converged against Sabalenka in this form. The tennis world had a new variable, and variables of that power don't disappear after one result. They arrive, they establish themselves, and then they return. Nobody gave Alex Eala a tournament draw designed for her. Nobody handed her a ranking, a platform, or a crowd. She built every single piece, match by match, continent by continent, opponent by opponent, until the day she stood across from the most feared player in women's tennis and made that player feel ordinary. 44 minutes. 6-1, 6-2. Silence. That's the story. That's the proof. That's the new reality. Women's tennis has a new conversation, and her name is spelled correctly now. If this story moved you, if this video gave you something real, hit subscribe. Every week, we bring you the rivalries, the moments, and the untold stories that make women's tennis the most compelling sport on this planet. You don't want to miss what's coming next.